Turkey brokers meeting on grain exports. Ukraine grain harvest begins. Ukraine says ships pass through Danube. People told to stockpile food in Shanghai. Iran to send several hundred drones to Russia. Putin to visit Tehran for a multilateral meeting. ISIS leader killed by US drone strike in Syria. An Arab NATO for the Middle East?
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on FUNDAY News. It's Thursday, July 14th, and here are your top stories. Reuters reported that military delegations from Ukraine, Russia, and Turkey will meet UN officials in Istanbul on Wednesday, July 13th, to discuss a possible deal to resume safe exports of Ukraine grain from the major Black Sea port of Odessa. Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar announced the meeting on Tuesday. Turkey has been working with the United Nations to broker a deal while more than 20 million tons of grain are stuck in silos at Odessa. The coming harvest is also at risk as Ukraine is now short of storage space due to the halt in exports.
According to diplomats, elements of the plan being discussed in the meeting include Ukrainian vessels guiding grain ships in and out through port waters that are filled with mines. Russia has agreed to a ceasefire while shipments are moving. In addition, Turkey, in conjunction with the United Nations, will inspect ships to ease Russian fears of weapons smuggling. The United Nations is also working to try to facilitate Russian grain and fertilizer exports. The U.S. said it has offered to give written assurances to shipping companies in importing countries in order to keep shipments moving.
The media reported that Ukraine's amber waves of grain are ready to be harvested, but as Russia's blockade on the Black Sea continues, 22 million tons of last year's crops still cannot reach their destinations. Ukraine's agriculture minister said earlier that in the autumn, when the corn harvest is over, the shortage of storage capacity could reach up to 15 million tons. Ukraine has appealed to the US, Canada, UK, and the EU to provide Ukraine with temporary storage facilities. As a result, the first batch is already selling to Ukraine.
Ukraine has said that its grain harvest could fall to around 65 million tons of grain and oilseeds this year, from 106 million tons in 2021 due to the Russian invasion. But still, Ukrainian ports are not operational now. On July 8th, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken challenged his Russian counterpart at closed-door G20 talks in Bali and demanded that Moscow allow grain shipments from Ukraine. Meanwhile, Turkey says that it is working with the UN, Kyiv, and Moscow to find a solution, which includes safe corridors in the Black Sea.
Ukraine's Deputy Infrastructure Minister Yuri Vaskov announced on Tuesday, July 12th, 16 ships passed through the Bystre River mouth of the Danube River in the last 4 days. He said the 16 vessels were now waiting to be loaded with Ukrainian grain for export to foreign markets, while more than 90 more vessels were awaiting their turn through Romania's Sulinu Canal. Vaskov expects, with a rate of 8 ships per day, the monthly exports of grain would increase by 500,000 tons.
Ukraine's infrastructure ministry said that while a rate of 8 per day was needed, only 4 ships could be received per day along the Sulinu route. Ukraine was negotiating with Romanian colleagues and European Commission representatives about increasing the rate of crossings. Vaskov said that if such conditions were met with the opening of the burst, he expected ship congestion would end within a week and that monthly exports of grain would increase by 500,000 tons.
According to reports carried in media outlets, including eastday.com on Tuesday night, 2 neighborhood committees in Shanghai issued an open letter on July 11th, calling on residents to stockpile enough food and medical supplies to last 14 days. The neighborhood committees of New Lake Pearl Community, Putuo District, and Guangling Community, Hokou District, confirmed the information and claimed the directive to stockpile food and medicines was aimed at stimulating people's epidemic prevention awareness.
今天是2022年1月7日，刚才社区工作人员又用大喇叭通知我们。
Bloomberg reported that while the open letters fueled concern that Shanghai would be headed for another citywide lockdown, Gansu in Lanzhou province has already shifted to a partial lockdown on July 11th, with its residents ordered to stay in their homes. Wugang in Henan province announced a lockdown on Tuesday, July 12th, after finding a single COVID case. As of Monday, some 30 million people across China were under some form of movement restrictions to quell transmission. but authorities have so far steered clear of strict lockdowns in key economic regions.
U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told reporters on Monday, July 11th, that the Iranian government is preparing to send several hundred drones, including some equipped with weapons, to Russia at some point in July. Sullivan said, "Our information indicates that the Iranian government is preparing to provide Russia with up to several hundred unmanned aerial vehicles, including weapons-capable UAVs on an expedited timeline. But it's unclear whether Iran has delivered any of these UAVs to Russia already."
At a briefing for reporters, Mr. Sullivan said Iran was preparing to train Russian troops to use them, beginning as soon as early this month.
The media reported that Michael Kaufman, research program director in the Russia Studies program at the Center for Naval Analysis, said that Russian forces have been losing reconnaissance drones in large numbers. Their own production capacity for armed drones is still nascent, so Russian troops could be trained to use the technology quickly. But without specific knowledge about the drones, it's difficult to gain an exact timeline. This is one area where Iran may have more capacity.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov announced on Tuesday, July 12th, that Putin will travel to Tehran next Tuesday, July 19th, to take part in a multilateral meeting with his Iranian and Turkish counterparts as part of the Astana peace process to end the war in Syria. Euronews reported that right after the end of the U.S. President Joe Biden's visit to Israel and Saudi Arabia to discuss Iran's nuclear program and negative influence in the region, Putin is scheduled to leave for Tehran.
According to the chairman of the Economic Commission of the Iranian parliament, the government in Tehran hopes that Putin's visit will provide the basis for the expansion of bilateral economic cooperation between Iran and Russia during a situation where both countries are under U.S. sanctions. Peskov also confirmed that Putin will have a separate meeting with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan while in Tehran. The announcement of Putin's visit was just one day after the U.S. accused Iran of sending weapons-capable drones to Russia.
U.S. Central Command has announced that the leader of the so-called Islamic State group, Maha al-Agal, was killed in a drone strike on Tuesday, July 12th in Syria, while an unidentified senior IS official was also seriously injured. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, al-Agal was a former prominent commander of IS during its control of Raqqa. He was most recently a commander in Turkish-backed faction called Jaish al-Shakia. U.S.-led coalition forces have also targeted al-Qaeda-linked militants in Syria over the years.
There have been 3 major successful strikes against ISIS leaders between Iraq and Syria since 2019, senior leaders.
Euronews reported that the Pentagon said that the drone strike took place outside of Jindaris, a town in northwest Syria close to the Turkish border. U.S. President Joe Biden said in a statement, "The attack takes a key terrorist off the field and significantly degrades the ability of ISIS to plan, resource, and conduct their operations in the region." Biden added, "Like the U.S. operation in February that eliminated ISIS's overall leader, it sends a powerful message to all terrorists who threatened our homeland and our interests around the world."
Long before U.S. President Joe Biden scheduled to visit Israel and Saudi Arabia between July 13th to 16th, Jordan's King Abdullah II said on June 22nd that he would support the formation of a Middle East military alliance similar to NATO. Then, in the last week of June, the Wall Street Journal reported on secret meetings held in Egypt that saw military officials from Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain come together to discuss cooperating on defense.
Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and King Abdullah II of Jordan arrived in Baghdad. They were received by Iraq's President Barham Saleh and held discussions with Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi.
DW News reported that on June 30th, 1 week before the secret meeting, Israel's defense minister, Benny Gantz, said Israel had joined a new U.S.-led network that he called the Middle East Air Defense Alliance, or MEAD. Biden is scheduled to head to Saudi Arabia for a GCC+3 meeting, which brings Iraq, Jordan, and Egypt together with the Gulf leaders of Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us on FUNDAY News. Let's make every day a fun day. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I will see you next time.